Arts Comprehensive Renovation Project, Reedy Creek Elementary School Comprehensive Renovation Project, as well as an exciting opportunity for us to initiate a CNC welding program at our Simpson Road campus for Osceola Technical College. I will tell you that since the presentation was developed and presented, Mr. Clinch and Ms. Graver and the team and I have had some further discussions looking at our sales tax collections, the impact of the pandemic and recovery efforts. And in order to make sure that we have cash on hand for projects as planned, we're going to be looking to probably scale back a little bit on our budget for Osceola County School for the Arts and push out the Reedy Creek project for a year. So just keep that in the back of your minds as we work through this discussion, and the team can go over some additional details with you.
Thank you for that introduction, Dr. Pace. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This is the facilities workshop. We'll be discussing these three items as were summarized by Dr. Pace. The first item is the Osceola County School of the Arts Comprehensive Renovation. We've met one-on-one to go through the concept and budget. As of yesterday, per the summary issued by Dr. Pace, we do have some slight redirection on this project. We will be going back and evaluating the scope to work to something that gets us to $45 million total project budget. Essentially, we're going to be keeping the classroom building that we have previously discussed, the stagecraft area addition. However, we will be foregoing the kitchen cafeteria and doing some modifications to it to increase the efficiencies, as well as some outside dining, which really seems to be a great opportunity, not only for the school, but for the Performing Arts Center as well, to share that amenity. What remains the critical path activity is the tri-party agreement with Tupperware and the county to provide for the bus loop. That is still moving forward. Our attorney and Rhonda Blake have been doing a great job working that agreement with the county and Tupperware, and they anticipate bringing that tri-party agreement to the 11/3 board meeting. So we did not want to issue a design RFQ until that was approved, because our concepts are all predicated on the fact of having that bus route. And if for whatever reason we didn't get it, then we would have to reissue design RFQs, and we certainly don't want to do that. We want to make sure we have clear messaging at the start of this project. So with that, really not much more to share with the OXA project at this time. Again, we are now going to go through our evaluation process to marry the scope with that $45 million project. But I'll open it up to questions at this time if the board has any questions about that process.
Ms. Castillo, question?
No, just confirming the kitchen, taking out the kitchen as part of the project, is that brought down the sum?
That's correct.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
anything else, was there anything else modified or just
We
that?
would be, also tailing back on other areas of the project, obviously, which would be the level of renovations as well for building 1 and 2. So it's hard to say at this time what that $45 million will buy us. But we do know that we have a new classroom building, which is going to be in the neighborhood of $10 million. The stagecraft area, about $500,000. We have about $5 million worth of site work, and that would leave somewhere around $13 million for renovations. Of course, we have our project soft costs and FF&E, and we had discussed that the FF&E would probably be staged somewhere around $4 million for that project.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clinch, and thank you, Superintendent, for your conversation, I'm sure, with staff and kind of reviewing and talking through some of the pieces and parts with this. I know I had expressed some concerns in my one-on-one as well as a conversation with you, just from the overall budget standpoint, and then also the strain that type of an expenditure would place on the school district's capital funds and our big picture of what it is we need to do. I think just a quick comment for the benefit of those that are paying attention. I recognize that, number one, this is a project that we've identified and targeted as something that we want to work on as a board. I recognize that eliminating the current classroom situation there for this board member is my top priority. Creating permanent student stations with a modern classroom wing is my first priority as a board member. Dealing with some of the internal flow infrastructure pieces I know is just a natural evolution of what this site and this development project takes on. And I do recognize that this is a unique school with unique programming, and having the additional elements that support the curriculum and programming that's in place is important. But for what it's worth, for me, I'm looking at a high growth district with the need for student stations and the elimination of relocatables in any way that we can across the district as being my first priority, and then all of the other things, like you've heard me say when we were doing Toho High and when we're doing other projects, that's going to be my first priority. So just so that it's clear where I stand, what I've said, what my conversations have been, I'm grateful that we're looking at a modified budget on this, which is a significant change from where we started to where we're thinking we may land on it. And I recognize that this may also, as you work through it, it may end up becoming something that is multiples phases over time, and looking at different elements to come on, not just in the next 26 months or whatever. I see completion of 2020 here, 2024, so I guess that's 48 months almost. But I would, whether it's this school or any school, I'd raise concern about a large budget for a limited number of student stations and balancing out those priorities for me personally.
If I may just add as well, as we really started to dig into the project and get down into the details, the 800 student stations that are represented here, or the 799, are really what we would plan for in the new 3-story classroom building. As planned, there are currently student stations and classrooms in Building 1 as well as in Building 2, the main office as well as then the other ones. And those would have the slight renovation project, but still allow for that fine arts piece. So we will have ample student stations for the 1,000 students that this school currently serves. Because we've talked about the fact that we don't want to build a school and then still have a need for portables,
Right.
4 years down the road. That's certainly what we want to try to move away from. And I agree, sir, that we want to prioritize the classroom space. This was really built out of modulars,
Right.
which have functioned well, but it makes for tight spaces. It makes for leaky roofs at times that we've had to work to kind of contain. But we also understand the importance of the programmatic aspects of this school that make it truly special. For example, the stagecraft piece. That technical theater is a very rich and robust program that's been kind of limping along in a back corner that we believe we can bring to the front and still manage to do. The kitchen and the cafeteria are functioning. We could potentially do some of the spit and polish like we've done in some of our other kitchen and cafeteria renovations out of the school nutrition services budget. And as Mr. Clinch mentioned, look at what we could do for an outside down dining, kind of a terrace area, maybe a food truck that could service not only just the school during the regular 5 days a week, but also then work for the Performing Arts Center. So I think we just need to be a little bit more creative. Once we have, kind of the general consensus for the board that this is a scope and a budget that you can live with, then we'll be working as a team and then eventually working with design professionals and what that looks like.
Yeah, and just to, please go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to comment on the idea of, and I'm not saying it is the right idea, but the idea of the food truck and being innovative in that. Obviously, it immediately makes me think of some of the conversations we had in designing Neo City and some of the unique elements that we can create. And one of the things I really like and appreciate about OXA is that it is one of our unique schools in the county that has a high performing school, and creating that element in whatever it is, whether it's lunch, cafeteria, food service, whatever. I think it's a really neat thing. And you guys have all heard me say over the years, whether it's OXA or Neo City or the Osceola Business Academy or other programs that we can bring online, the more that we can create schools and concepts like this that become a genuine draw for students of great interest that gets them hooked into their education by pursuing their personal craft in whatever way that might be. it's a win. So I like the idea too of saying like, is there something different we can do as opposed to just building a traditional four-wall cafeteria with a kitchen? Is there something really cool and innovative that we can do to save money, still meet the needs, and create a unique identifier for the school?
If I can just ask for further clarification with regards to the kitchen, cause I know the concept is to bring outside dining. What will that do to the current kitchen? Are we keeping that and just extending the dining outside, or what's, if you can you take me through that process?
Thank you, Mr. Castillo. That's an excellent question. So from what we understand, the serving lines at the school today work relatively well in that they're able to move move the students through in a timely manner, in an efficient manner. So the real challenge is the dining space itself.
Yeah.
It's sized very small. So we would be looking to expand those dining opportunities with additional outside dining. There is some of that today, but it's a very small area. And something that perhaps gravitates towards the courtyard that we intend to implement in the school. Today, the school really doesn't have that full courtyard feel like if you go to one of our traditional high schools. So we're looking to embellish those courtyard capabilities. And with the food truck, our young students love the food trucks. They're trendy. It's the current trend that the students really like today. They see that as an opportunity to collaborate with their friends in a environment that's in an outside area. So we would be looking to bring in the utilities to support that food truck, water and power, so that we could work with our school nutrition services to get that functionality at the school.
And Mark, it's a combined high school and middle school, so we're looking at a way to kind of enhance that operation as well. So the high schools would have their space and the middle schools would have their space, a little bit more defined.
Okay. I understand. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Thacker, do you have any comments or questions? We're on OXA still.
With you, I think. Yeah. Thank you.
Mr. Clinch?
Thank you all for your comments and input. Certainly, we will be looking at synergy as we move forward to elevate those existing programs at OXA. There's still, there's a lot of great opportunities, and we will certainly work with the stakeholders to bring those all to the forefront as we work through this project. The next project that we'd like to talk to you about is the Reedy Creek Elementary School Comprehensive Renovation. So the high level with Reedy Creek is the big opportunity is with Building 1. The first portion of Building 1 was built in '81, the last portion in '98. So we've started the Castaldi process. We were out there 3 weekends ago with the design team to start that process, knowing that the Castaldi process can be lengthy. The team is already moving forward with the Castaldi. We have a schedule that we've identified that incorporates the Castaldi. And so we're looking to do a review with DOE of the draft report shortly after the first of the year, so that we can finalize the report, submit the final, and then invite DOE down to do their site visit so that we can move that process through. I'm going to turn it over to our senior facility manager of design, Michael, so that he can work us through some of the other details of the project.
Okay, we're gonna focus on the costing. What we've decided to do to help the board out is to present a low, a medium, and a high costing. And as part of the exercise, we take trends, historical costs, and we work with a range of different factors. And we're gonna present the low, which we feel is the bare minimum that we could do the project with. Medium, which is the standard costing that we feel is adequate for Osceola County and within the expectations. And then the high budget, which would be all the bells and whistles. For this project, we've came up with about $35,122,000. It's slightly higher than what we did at Michigan Avenue, with the difference being the existing building at Reedy Creek has an earthen berm around it. We would have to take that berm down and it's going to increase the cost. As Mark said with the schedule, we're looking to push it out. We did have a fairly aggressive schedule with DOE, and by pushing it out another year actually helps us with that process, that we're not rushed through it. Does anybody have any questions?
I just have a comment with regards to slide 15, and this is something that maybe we can just consider in the future. It's not material, but I would like to know what are the changes between the different levels. Like, how did you get from, you know, low to high? What are the things that are what are the elements that are combined or taken away in order to make those price changes? And you don't have to actually put it in a slide. If when we do our one-on-ones, if that's something that we're able to discuss, I would appreciate that.
Not a problem.
Thank you.
Okay, and are there any other questions on Reedy Creek Elementary School? All right, great. Well, we'll move on.
What did you say the timeline was on that? The new timeline?
Yes, so initially, we've started the Castaldi process, and our initial plans were to finalize the draft report right after the first of the year, to go meet with DOE in person and get their input, finalize the report, and get a final approved Castaldi sometime around July. And then we would go out with the design RFQ. We're factoring in about a 5-month process, and that's with the actual working through the process, the shortlisting, the presentations, but also the advertising period. 1-year design, you know, keeping in mind that permitting on this project can be up to 8 months, only because it's South Florida Water Management District only. If Army Corps plays in, then we're looking up to a year of permitting. 24-month construction, which would currently land 12/24. However, we've been asked to defer this project by 1 year so that our sales tax collections can keep up with the pace of our funding strategy with this project. So we'd be looking at sometime in 2025 for completion.
Thank you.
Are you delaying the start of the project in general?
We
or
would-
just
yes.
some of the timelines?
Yeah, we would delay the start of design.
So Castaldi would be,
We're continuing with the Castaldi
Okay.
process. We've already started the Castaldi process. So we're gonna continue that, get that completed. And if we complete it and we're waiting for, 5-6 months for this new timeline to kick in, that's okay. That Castaldi will still remain valid.
okay,
And that timeline is out of our control, as you know, so.
Yeah.
Okay, with that, we are going to provide our last update for this afternoon. And this is the Otech CNC welding program. So a little bit of background. We initially had planned on siting this new program at Otech St. Cloud. And it was going to be located in the OUC, a building that's currently occupied by OUC. Long story short, that's been delayed 3 years. So we're looking at moving the program to the Otech Kissimmee location where we own the property, where we have vacant property. And with that, I am gonna let our senior facility manager tell us about what this program will entail.
All right, we went out for bids on a pre-engineered metal building, and it came back, and we were able to purchase the building, which is scheduled to be delivered around December 14th of this year. With the size of the building, we saw an opportunity to actually bring in the CNC portion of it, which we never intended to. Right now, their space takes up about 1,000 square feet. And with this new building, we can basically double that space. And there's a lot of opportunities for the two programs to come together once they're in the same location.
I would also like to recognize that we have our senior director, Mr. Jeff Arnott with CTE present, and Mr. Tim Burnett, that we work very closely with CTE. We've been working lockstep on this project?
As far as the location is concerned, there's 2 portables that'll be relocated, and the building will actually set on that spot. It's actually a perfect spot for the new building. It has water, sewer, and electric right next to the building. It also provides us more opportunity for expansion. The way that we've laid this out, we can actually expand it with another 5 or 6 different buildings in the future if we need to.
So we've looked at this from a master planning standpoint. Rather than just plopping down that building on a vacant piece of property, we're very strategic in how we're locating it so that we can allow provisions to add additional buildings in the future as our CTE programs continue to grow.
Yes, just out of, just to make sure everybody is aware, as you know, this is, both of these fields are high demand, high wage jobs that we have been wanting to be able to add to our programs or expand in our programs. CTE has been able to garner a state grant that will allow us to buy a lot of the equipment that goes into this. In addition, they already have developed an apprentice program that can start actually in January. And then the idea is that the classes for the welding program would actually get to start next August. So that was one of the other reasons behind the metal building. And the 2 portables that we're moving are actually rental portables that have been used for storage. So that's an additional savings by being able to send those back to the manufacturer.
Good. Very good.
The costing for the program, we're talking just a little bit over $2 million, and we were able to add the CNC program for bare minimum cost to that budget.
And when we had initially met with Dr. Pace and CTE, we were looking at a $2 million price tag for this project. But then following that, we looked at adding the CNC program, which is why we're just a little over $2 million now.
Started off 3.5.
We'll get to that.
The original project budget was $3.5 million, and we were considerably under that. Right now, the schedule is set up for opening for the December of 2022. We are ahead of schedule and we're working to push that. We would like to be ready for school in August of 21.
Yes.
So that's where we're pushing.
That's what
It's going to be
And there's a
very
board
aggressive
item on
construction.
there tonight for the actual design effort.
And I wanted to point out that 3.5 million was when this program was going to take place at Otech St. Cloud. That would have been a very costly renovation of that existing building. It's very cut up, it has a loading dock, so we're actually being able to build a brand new building, get exactly what we want for less cost.
In addition, if I just may add, that would have been in a leased building because it was something that the city of St. Cloud wanted to lease us on a long-term lease, whereas here we'll own it on our property and can expand from there.
So what I'm trying to figure out just real quick is just describe for me where on our property this is.
So it is between transportation and Otech, just adjacent to paths. So the Simpson Road is to the left of the screen. You see transportation down on the bottom, paths up on the top. So it's on the lower end of the Otech Kissimmee campus.
Very close to where we just recently completed a new parking lot with the had grass parking before we created a paved parking area right more in the front.
Yep, I found it now, looking at the aerial maps and then looking at what you have here. So those 2 structures that are circled,
Yes,
what are they?
those are modulars that they're the lease modulars that are
They're
now
actually
being
in the
returned.
process of
So we're eliminating those lease costs.
Okay. I know you said that, but I was trying to figure out geographically what I'm even looking
and
at.
they weren't
so
actually
I'm
being
finally catching
used
up.
currently, so it was a very good opportunity for us to go in and pick the optimum site. We could have cited them obviously from our expansion and any of those future expansion areas, but that's really the ideal location because of where all the utilities are. and again, the proximity to the school.
And then how big is this building? Did you say that?
Yes, it's on the background, 75 by,
That's
It's
about
136 by
9,500
70.
square feet.
so that's about 9,500 square feet, I believe.
Correct.
And the usable square footage we would have had at Otech St. Cloud, which is the leased building, would have only been 7,800 square feet. So we actually gain square footage as well. It's a more efficient use of that program.
And so when I-
And the other thing I want to mention too is the building in St. Cloud is not off the table. We still have plans to pursue it. Perhaps, with the medical campus expanding, that might be a good opportunity to expand our medical programs or for other CT programs, but that is still on our radar screen.
That's all I have. Are there any other questions?
I do not, thank you.
I just wanna make a brief comment. Mark, I said this to you, I guess when we were all on the phone. This is a no-brainer project for me. This fits perfectly within what I know I personally and we collectively have all expressed interest in. This program itself is a really unique program that provides high wage opportunities in an industry of demand and a targeted industry. And as I said to you in our one-on-one, creating kind of the future concept and layout of the planning of the other structures that we can put in over time is really smart and sets that campus up for future success and more nimble expansion in the future. So I'm excited about this.
We are as well. And through this process, we've learned a lot of things. How to purchase pre-engineered buildings is one of those. So now we know how to do that, and we can easily do that in the future. Well, that concludes our presentation for this afternoon. Thank you very much for your attention and your input. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything additional?
There's nothing else additional from me, obviously, there's nothing
Or anything additional for workshop purposes?
I'm good.
Nothing, thank you.
Okay, so at this time, we'll stand adjourned for a workshop and reconvene for our school board meeting at 5:30.
Great job.